welcome back to the Last Ditch Effort podcast. I'm here today with my co-host Maurice and with our first recurring guest ever, Ralph, who just came back from New Zealand, and I just came back from a cold, and Maurice was always back, probably. Today we'll go over a few things, calling that wasn't really calling in New Zealand, in Taihape, to hear a little bit from Ralph. We'll go over the first judging experience that Maurice and I did together in Switzerland for our first RTN that we judged together. And then we'll quickly go over the RTN meta results and the current Talishar metagame and February metagame stats, and give a small overview on what we believe to expect in the last couple of days of RTN season. So, yeah, with that, welcome, Ralph.
Hello. Hey, Patrick. Hey, Maurice. How you doing?
Welcome back to the show.
Already, right?
Yeah, it's back-to-back episodes. Crazy.
We're not going to mention that between episodes there was like a 6-week gap or something.
Yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes, right?
Life got in the way.
Life happens. But yeah, now we're back on our schedule and we're back with our guest. So do we want to start with the calling Taihape? Ralph, you said it was an amazing event. What kind of event was that even? Like, it was not an official event.
Yeah, you want like the full story, how I got to play the calling?
Yeah,
let's
hear the full story.
Yeah, sure, okay. So yeah, we played the calling in Queenstown, and we were like just next to the venue. We were camping, and like a lot of guys from Wellington were there as well. So because the guy Koi made like second place there, and we made a small party, and at our camping place just next to the lake, and that's very like my wife and me just met all the nice guys from Wellington, and they were like talking, and hey, we're gonna make a fun community event, and it's gonna be in Taihape, which is in the middle of nowhere, and nobody stops there. So yeah, just everything lined up. It was like, oh, we have it in 2 weeks, and we're like just traveling, and be like, maybe that's perfect timing, and so it happened.
So where exactly is Taihape, like on the map?
It's like on the North Island of New Zealand, and then like if you drive from Wellington to Auckland, it's like 3 hours, I think, from Wellington. It's really like in the middle somewhere on the North Island, and the town is like, it's a farmer's town. I even see like people just occasionally walking around in gumboots. And yeah, like the event was at the horse farm stable thingy, basically. But it was very nice, and yeah, just love the community. And
yeah, that's cool. How many people were there?
I think it was around 30 people.
All right.
It was basically the local New Zealand community and you.
Yes.
I mean, that made it an international calling in Taihape. Yeah.
I think like the fun part was they had special rules. So like they had stuff like if you never played the Flesh and Blood event, you get a token, and the token was called Kano. So the effect of the token, like you could put as many as you wanted into your deck. The effect was like, you shout Kano to pay the cost, basically, and then you rip it in half, draw a card, and you get a life. So it's a red pitch, no block. You just shout Kano and get a free life and get a card back, basically. Plus, if you like Kasai, you get your hero effect turned on, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and like the twist was like, yeah, okay, if you never played an event, you get like 10 Kinos at the start of the tournament. If you are like outside of Wellington, you get 1, stuff like that. And I think like the most fun is like you had to take a selfie with a sheep, so you get an extra run. So like I got all the sheep selfies now before me. Just great.
Yeah, and it was a community-run event, and it was like a community played event, and you got to participate. But what was it competitive, or was it just like meme decks too? I heard you played Pummel Katsu, a deck that you also borrowed from someone there.
Yeah.
Are you back on the Pummel Katsu train now, or?
No, no, I'm not. Like Diggle, one of the guys who organized the event, he was like so nice to give us decks, and yeah, he prepared a Pamakatsu deck for me, and it was like, well, first round I just couldn't play it. It was like so weird to play. But then I kind of figured it out a bit, and it worked out. Made it top 8, and yeah, shout out to Diggle for giving me the deck and the invite, and then for everything, like for the whole experience. Amazing.
Yeah, that actually sounds really funny. I wish there was more of these like sort of events in Europe as well. Because I know in the US they also organize some community-run events that are quite cool.
Yeah, I guess it's up to us to make.
Yeah, it's up to the Last Ditch Effort community to create something really awesome.
Yeah, honestly, I think it is. If we as a community want to see more events like this, it's something we just have to start. And I think we talked about this not officially yet on the podcast, but Maurice and I, we actually plan to create a community tournament, which would be a UPF draft with some additional spice in there, and some additional rulings. We're figuring out the details. We hopefully have a location already. We need to fix a date, but yeah, it's work, right? Organizing things like this takes time and energy, and I respect it a lot that people just spend this time, money, energy to come up with these cool tournaments in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand, but also everywhere around the world. I think we need more of those, and we should just do it. Yeah,
I think also a very good idea they had is with the side event. It was like a gambut tossing event, and you could win a display of the new set. I think they have hitters. Or maybe it was the other set, who knows, the last one.
Which so one you didn't win the Gambut challenge?
No, I didn't.
don't know which display you.
I just didn't have I just didn't have the reach. Like you just had to hit a box, and who is closest to the box wins. But I just didn't have the reach for the Gambut tossing. Too weak. Need to train more.
Yeah, and the people who live there, they're probably trained, right? I think there is even a gambut statue in Taihape. So
there is, yeah.
If you're a local there, you know your gambut tossing, so you have an advantage there too. But what would be the equivalent of Zurich? I don't know. Who can eat the most chocolate, or I don't know. Is there anything you want to add? Any anecdotes from your New Zealand travel and that is FAB related or even non-FAB related?
It was just super nice for us while traveling to experience the New Zealand locals and having a great time with them, doing barbecue for lunch, and then having some fun after the event as well. It was a great time, and as I said, I think just playing Flesh and Blood, playing the game, but the people are amazing all over the world, and especially in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Cool. Thanks a lot. We already were joking around. We need a special jingle to introduce the Ralph field report or something like this. Earlier today, I asked ChatGPT to come up with a jingle, but it was just beep sounds that just completely hurt my ears. Then I was like, okay, we will not do this to our listeners because, it was just blowing out my ears.
So the next one is the calling in Poland. More field reports.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll all go together and then we can do a vlog or something like this. That would be amazing. Cool. Yeah. So thanks to the Ralph field report.
Yeah,
Maurice, you had your debut as a FAB judge.
Yeah.
How did that go?
So we have two stores here in Zurich. One is Kaboom in the city, and the other one is in Winterthur, which is 20 minutes away. And Patrick and I got the honor of being able to judge an RTN there in Winterthur. And it was my first time as a judge, even though I'm technically still level 0 judge. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was really cool, helping to run the event smoothly. And I would say it ran very smoothly. What would you say?
Yeah, it did run super smooth. So it was a CCRTN, and we had, I think, a little bit, it was around 30 people. I think 32 3 were registered, and 30 showed up, or I don't know if these
something
are the
like
exact
that. Yeah,
numbers.
just
Something like
under
this.
32. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because you recently started playing Kano. I'm a Kano player, and the 2 judges were Kano players. And then there were 2 Kano players in the event who both top 8'd it. And it's like, whoops. But I promise it does not have to do anything
I don't
with the
think
fact
there were any
that
calls
judges
that involved
were.
the Kano players.
Yeah, that
So
is true.
it was not because of judge bias.
Yeah, and I think we are the only 4 judges, the only 4 Kano players probably in Switzerland that go to events. So that was funny. The meta was super diverse. The people were super friendly. Like we had some guests that traveled longer, that came from Germany, and yeah, it ran just super smooth. Also, a shout out to Alex from Well Played in Winter Tour, who organized everything, and it started like I think with a player cap that was way lower, and then people started signing up, and then Alex was like, "Oh, we should probably get a bigger room," and he just like that organized a way bigger room that he set up, and we arrived, and it was like such a cool venue, right? This big room, big tables. There are these prism angel posters, banners everywhere. And there was a restaurant super close, or it was actually in a room in a restaurant, so you could get food and you could get coffee, and like it was well organized.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was almost like a tiny little mini battle hardened almost. Like there was like enough not advertising, but there was like a lot of stuff in the room, like with the posters and like the top 8 tables all nicely set up.
And it was also super well ventilated and very bright, and it was just good. I think from the organization, the player base, as I said, everyone was super nice. There were a few judge calls, but those were usually judge calls like, "Oh, oops, I did intentionally draw an additional card" or something like this, and they called the judge on themselves, and then we solved the issue.
Yeah.
There weren't any, at least no one called any cheating infractions or things like this. Also, we didn't see anything that was
but it was
out of
also
the ordinary. It felt competitive, but everyone just was communicating well. Wherever I walked to watch a game, like every trigger was announced, every game action was announced. It was just like so nice. I was so happy and so proud to be part of it.
People also had like their tokens out, like everything, like communicating clearly what was going to happen on hit and stuff. And a lot of players that we had, it was their first tournament at a competitive rules enforcement level, from what I understood. There were quite a few players who had never played a bigger event than like an armory.
Yep, I think so too, and that is super nice too. There were people there that I haven't seen at last year's RTNs or PQs, and there were more. I feel like there were more people than in the last year. Maybe that was just a perception because the room was bigger than at other RTNs that I've been to. But it felt like the community is growing and there are new players, and it seemed like they enjoyed the games in the competitive environment a lot too. And just in addition to like you mentioned that the top 8 had additional tables, so we had 4 tables, which was like, let's call it the feature match area, even though we didn't stream, that were a little bit to the side. So when people were done, people actually players would go to the top tables and watch. I remember this one Kano game where there were quite a few people standing around. The Kano mirror, okay, that was already in top 8. But yeah, people would watch, and if you make space for people to watch the top tables, they will do it, and that I thought was super cool.
Yeah, the event was ultimately won by Kano, which was, I would say, a little surprising at the time. But then when we saw the metagame breakdown for that first week of RTNs, turns out Kano actually won a few amount of RTNs, right?
Yeah, I think Kano was the week 1 winner, and then in week 2 we started seeing Victor win the most RTNs, which after week 1 everyone complained, right? Every podcast talked about the Kano issue. People on X, on Twitter, they did rant about Kano, that is ruining the game. And then week 2 Victor has the most RTN wins, and Victor is, I think, one of Kano's best matchups. So I'm not sure where the Kano players suddenly forgot how to ruin the game for the others, but Kano was not as much represented. Maybe it got hated out by more AB, more respites. People started attacking and they didn't even make it into the victors. That's a possibility, but this we unfortunately don't really know.
I think Kano is always good when people are not prepared for it, and as soon as people start preparing with AB3 and like some respites or some other cards that are good into Kano, it very quickly starts. You start losing games that would have otherwise been like kind of free wins, right? Like if someone shows up with AB1 and nothing else and like doesn't really have a game plan into Kano, you usually have a very good time as Kano. But then as soon as people start coming prepared, it looks a little bit different.
Yeah, the way I see it is like, if people practice playing against Kano and if people make themselves aware with what is going on in the deck, and when they have to hold a card in hand to bluff a blue, to pitch for AB to survive, and when they can allow to tap out, I think that's when the Kano win percentage goes down. Because I mean, you can still win some games. You can definitely just do broken stuff and win, but it doesn't feel like most games just are deterministic if your opponent does not respect you. And I think this is the problem. You have to respect the deck, and if you disrespect the deck, then you might just think you are unlucky, but you brought yourself into that position yourself. Ralph, does that convince you now to play Kano as well, or where you were not at the RTN, right? But what are you brewing with these days? Like, what would you have played at that event?
Oof, hard to say. I just like had my 2 months off, right? Not looking at stuff competitively, but I'm just like a Deshayu grinder now. Just hope to make it work.
Okay, there you have a quite good Kano matchup, I would say. Even though you're in combo range with the starting life, but you have mitigation, you have AB, you have high blues. Even though yesterday in the armory, I heard you got obliterated by Maurice.
Yeah, Maurice taught me how to lose against Kano.
Yeah. It's really interesting for me to see like how people like reacted a little bit. I understand that people dislike Kano this much because it feels like if you don't bring the tools, you are absolutely defenseless against him. Even though the win percentage might not even be as high as with other decks. So I feel like during the height of Lexi or the height of Oldhim, those decks were way more consistent and way more unfair. And maybe my memory is just bad, but I feel like people did not complain as much as when the 1 week that Kano got like good results, all of a sudden the deck like is broken and needs to be removed. But like it was shown very quickly that that's not the case. It's just a very visceral reaction of like the community.
Yeah, I really think that this new 0 cost 1 damage arcane spell pushed the deck like to completely new heights, because that can be the only explanation, right? Otherwise the deck is the same. There has been innovation here and there, but
but I think it's not the Kano deck didn't change. It's the surrounding meta that changes, right?
I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that one more 0 cost that has a little bit more of a relevant on hit suddenly makes the deck completely insane. I don't think so. I think it's just like the metagame. Icelander not being in the format helps because people do not play as many blues, and people might be a little bit more greedy in terms of deck building, and that's fine. I think you can also just as Fi, for example, completely disrespect Kano and kill them in 2 turns. If they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't. But that is a choice as a player that you have to make, how you want to approach the Kano matchup, and I think that is up to any player. And if you hate losing to Kano and that all you want to do is beat Kanos, then play a deck that just beats Kano. Just play Prism, right? But then you might give up other matchups. So I think that's fine. You can win against Kano, you can lose against Kano. Just play what you want. But yeah, I think honestly Kano is not a problem, and I think the metagame seems to adapt. And also the metagame was super diverse. I think the top 8 at the RTN that we judged was there were 2 Kanos, there were 2 KOs, there was a Bravo, there was a Kasai, there was a Dash,
and a Fi.
And there was a Fi, right?
Yeah.
So it's 8 players, and only 2 heroes were represented twice, and I think that's fine. I don't see it as problematic. And people were joking during the Kano mirror, but some people like the deck, some people don't like the deck, and I think it's fine. But yeah, the metagame seems to adjust, and I think this already brings us to our next segment. Thanks again to Alex for the RTN, but let's talk about the current metagame, and I think what we are going to expect, what we are going to play. I know that Ralph and we are going to an RTN. So we're recording this on Wednesday, and we will be playing on Saturday at a CC RTN. And it's my first CC RTN of the season that I kind of want to do well. But honestly, I do not know what to play yet, because it's a completely unknown meta in a store that I've never been to. And yeah, I'm a little bit worried that what we might experience in Switzerland here locally at our store might not be true elsewhere. How do you see this, Ralph?
I thought you'd just go Prism, right? Best deck.
Yeah, I'm honestly considering to bring Prism. But
what about that bolted deck that you texted me about that you told me has no bad matchups and wins, like has the 80% win rate?
Yeah, so I played more than 5 games with it, and now I'm not convinced anymore.
Oh, no, that's just too.
It's a Talishar. The first 10 games are a new deck trap where you think it's broken, and I think this is a good segue, right? Because if you're not sure how decks perform, you can wait for callings and for big tournaments. And look at the results there, conversion rates there, and see what the pros are playing. But you can also go to this is not sponsored, by the way, to February.
Although we are open, if anyone's listening that would like to sponsor the podcast, please get in touch.
Yeah, for sure. The February, there is the feature to look at the meta results, and every now and then I just go there and have a look what people are playing. We know it's not very representative of professional play, but there are so many games are played there, and there has to be some information in the data. And I think the error margins are probably like plus minus 10% or something. But I think the overall trends that we see in the decks are somewhat reflecting deck performance in an okay way. So let's have a look let's talk about this month's or the February and the March stats for CC decks in February. Is there anything specific you want to talk about, Maurice, or that you want to mention that sticks out to you? Or
I mean, what really stuck out to me was the Dromai win percentage, which is actually the highest of any deck, just across all the heroes, like across the board. And right next to it is Victor, which were the 2 decks that we saw perform the best in the last 2 weeks of the RTN, right? Best performing hero in RTN week 2, and Dromai being the best performing hero in RTN week 3, which is a little bit surprising to me, to be honest, because I felt like KO is very, very powerful, especially into Dromai, but it seems to have not stopped these Dromai players from performing at like online play as well as in-person play.
Yeah, I think the Dromai KO matchup is something very interesting to me, because you don't have as many 6+ power attacks in your deck as, for example, a Reinhardt deck would, or a Guardian deck would have. But you can put out so much pressure, right? But then the pressure you want to, like in a Bloodrush Bellow turn, you don't want to swing a claw at an Ashwing. You don't want to waste these 4 juicy points of value, right? So if I would play a lot against Troma, what I would try first is see if I can just aggress them out, like just straight up raise them. But the Dromai decks, they block so well, right? They have a package usually of D-reacts, some play sand covers even, and then they just play a dragon a turn. And if you disrespect the dragons for too long, they chip in damage. And even though if they're just the Ashwings, right? What do you do as KO against Rake the Embers? You don't want to attack them. You want to deal the damage to the Droma directly. So I think it's a tricky matchup from the KO side. Especially the Droma seem to have figured out the matchup quite okay, right? It's still like a almost 50-50 matchup. So usually the more skilled player would win. And because KO is not out for so long, people have more experience playing Dromai. Also have more experience playing Dromai into other broods and into Guardians. And I think people benefit from experience, and especially in metagames like this. Usually, if you know your deck better than your opponent does, you have higher chances of winning.
Yeah, I feel like Dromai also, with ever since Tome of Imperial Flame or something, came out, you just have, like, you can do degenerate stuff with like the best of them. I feel like the Tome really gave you these like extra, I don't know, 5% more than like you had before, which is enough to just, like, in these types of matchups where both decks are kind of like performing fair, like against Dash or against other similar matchups that are just kind of like a mid-range fest, you just can put out these power turns where you drop 3 dragons and completely obliterate like the board state.
Yeah.
You also think like
another thing that I recognized is that people are not starting to play Dromai now. The people that play Dromai now play Dromai since probably day one. So they know their decks. Like, yeah, I talked to a friend yesterday who's a big Dromai fan, a good Dromai player. And he was like, I don't know what to do if Dromai LLs. Like, how do I play a deck that doesn't have dragons? And I think he said it like jokingly, but I was like, yeah, you have to go back to playing fair Flesh and Blood again.
Yeah.
It's or play Prism and try to do illusionist things there. But yeah, I think Dromai is also something that stuck out to me. Are you convinced now, Ralph? Will you start playing Dromai?
No, I played Dromai before, but it's too, I don't know, the matches just go too long for bigger tournaments for me. And then you also have like troubles getting the match done against Guardian, which can be quite annoying. And as you said, like she's going to Living Legend soon, probably. I thought it would be sooner, but now, like with the new set release and stuff, it stopped her a bit, right? Yeah, but what I maybe wanted to say, like maybe it's like also like 50 the Chromite Dust, which helps a lot against like Popper decks, right?
Yeah, the Chromite Dust is very, very good.
I feel like LSS also thought she would Living Legend sooner, quite honestly. Because James White went on the record saying that Icelander was the last hero that abuses action points, but I actually feel like Dromai is the last hero to abuse action points.
Dash.io is gonna be the last one.
Yeah, but Dash.io has to work so hard to like have all these no block items in the deck and stuff.
But guess how many action points I had yesterday?
Yeah.
What's the most amount of action points I had yesterday?
7.
I'll say
Close.
5.
It was 9.
9.
There you go. Did you win that game?
No.
So
like I had one more boost card, which I could have just arsenaled, and it would have saved like the whole next turn. But I thought like, I never had this much action points. I want to have 9.
So good. So you're maybe holding the record for most action points in Switzerland, at least at this point. If anyone has
it's
has
okay.
ever had
He
more,
did it
let
so
us
he
know.
has a story for the podcast, right?
Exactly. It's the Ralph Field Report back at it again. So Dromai also surprised me. But then also it surprised me, but I was not surprised because Dromai is just a very, very good deck. And again, similar to the Kano problem, or let's call it topic, people sometimes might not respect the matchup and cut on poppers, and then maybe locally you don't have a Dromai, so you play Kasai, play 100 games of Kasai, never face a Dromai, then you go to an event, you suddenly play a Dromai. What's your game plan? I think those are all reasons why the deck is performing well. And honestly, whereas I thought Kano and Victor will probably drop in win rate, I could expect Dromai to also perform similarly well as the week before in the next week, because all the Dromai players will bring out their decks again, and they'll do well. Dromai players usually are players that like long games, that like the grind, and you can definitely grind out a lot of decks in the current format.
Yeah, and the other thing that really stood out to me in the data, both on Talishar but also in the RTN results, is Bravo. I expected Bravo to be much better than he actually ended up being. He went from being like similar win rates or similar results to Victor to just like completely kind of dropping off. And why do you think that is? Do people just prefer Victor now over?
You want to give an answer?
Sure,
I'm not a Guardian player. I can just hypothesize.
Like I just felt like after the set release of Heavy Hitters and with the Road to National season, it's just like a perfect time to try new heroes like this. At least like for us Swiss people, there's not much on the line. We can almost play the nationals anyway. So like my position now, like from my own experience, is like, okay, it's just like testing season at the moment. And then, like, of course, as a Guardian player, you're gonna try the new Guardian, right? So you rather just like put time into Victor, and it seems really strong with like the extra card draws and everything. Maybe that's why just like Bravo falls off a bit.
Yeah, it's true. It might be true. My guess is also that card draw is good. So it does not surprise me that Victor is doing so well into a very wide field. Because if you draw an additional card, if you hit your gold clashes, then you just have it's straight up card advantage, and then you can play like 14 power attacks because you just have so many resources in your hand. And I think Bravo, for me, having played both decks only a couple of times, for me playing Bravo is more difficult because I have to make more decisions in when do I want to dominate, how do I block. If I block, I can't dominate. If I can't dominate, my crush effect will not be sure. So it feels like there are way more decisions, whereas in Victor, at least the games that I played, the hands play themselves. Like, okay, there are 2 block cards. I will use the block cards to block. I cannot arsenal them. So I use them now, or I IP myself. So I'll just play the block cards. Oh, they clash. Oh, I win the clash. I draw a card. And then now I have this new card. And then at the start of my turn, I'm like, okay, I count the resources and see what is the biggest thing I can do. Of course, you add in a few go again cards here and there, so it adds another layer. But it's very like it's value gaming, similar to Kasai, right? Kasai, in my opinion, I played Kasai quite a lot. Is like just a value town, pure mid-range deck. If you want to play an aggressive warrior, just play Dori, which is, by the way, the other hero that surprised me a lot in terms of Talishar data. But we'll come to that. So I think Victor is also a very value-oriented game, and turns out drawing cards is good. Who would have thought?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like pretty cool to see how these new heroes have made like or have impacted the metagame, or even it's just maybe it's more so the rotating of Lexi, or like the rotating of a super clearly best deck in the format has left the room open for like so many other strategies to like emerge. And I'm sure we'll see something emerge from like Pro Tour LA where we're going to be like, oh, okay, this deck was like here all along. But first, like in the first week, I just felt like, oh, KO is the obvious choice. It's so strong and like so much value. But like now looking at these results, I feel like everyone is going to be prepared for KO. And I don't think it is the best deck in the format anymore. Or, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, the printing of Balance of Justice and the fact that there is hold in the line that some decks just can add as generic blues that they want to be pitching and then helps in your KO matchup is just so good against these kind of decks, right? If you, let's say you have 3 hold the lines in your deck and Balance of Justice, then you draw a card from Balance of Justice and block 2 from Balance of Justice, and you have 3, basically 5 blocks in your deck, and that is already a lot of value just for the fact that they want to draw cards. So yeah, I think people start realizing that okay, KO is a setup deck, and you can attack them in some turn cycles, and some turn cycles you really have to play defensively, or you become the aggressor and just try to overwhelm them. But that is hard if you play against KO. And yeah, I didn't expect KO to have like a 70% win rate, because it's still... I still see it as an aggro deck. And aggro decks historically can be disrupted and can be fatigued, even though I wouldn't try to fatigue it in the current meta. Even Victor is not really, the way it's played is not really a fatigue by block deck, and I think it shouldn't be played as that, because yeah, that's not ideal in the current meta, I believe.
It's crazy mid-range time right now, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
It is crazy mid-range time, and I think that is also why Dromai is so good.
Yeah, but it should be like OT dash and like just beat everything.
It's the thing is, you're right, it's super mid-rangey, but then every deck that's like really good has these like pop-off moments that are just insane. Like KO can just put out like 25 damage if he has like a good turn. The same with Kasai has like blood in her hands where she can, or what is it, blood on her hands, where she just like pops off. You have like Katsu with the combo. You have like Fi that can put out like 1 or 2 turns of ridiculous damage. And I feel like like Dash Inventor Extraordinaire is like has it with maximum velocity, but is almost not enough. Like it's insane to say that, but I feel like attacking for 3 boost plus max V is not enough value anymore in like one, if you only do it like once a game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you do the boost dash into a Victor, I think they will if I would play as a Victor and I would just have a super aggressive boost dash, I would probably try to fatigue them. On the other hand, if you play Victor and you see a control dash, then I would need to make a lot of damage very fast, because the late game plan
that's what I thought.
Will be difficult.
Like, are there like super fast decks that can just race you down and you don't get time to set up a stash?
Yeah, I think so. I think the ninjas, and honestly, Kasai just has so much value with her,
like the copper and gold on hits.
With her copper and gold stuff, it's so like, yeah, I don't think you can outvalue a Kasai.
So you think like, oh, okay, they may be like mid-rangey, like if they play against each other, but if you give them too much space, they can still like use their full hand and push out too much damage.
Yeah, I think if you just like give them too much time, they will either play like a crazy blood on her hands turn, or they will just play raise an army and make a bunch of tokens, and then you spend a whole turn just clearing tokens. And I also think your Dromai matchup is just not great.
No,
I feel like Dromai just does the same thing that you do, but better and faster.
Yeah, I never was a Dash player. I can't really comment on that, but I feel like the mid-range matchups usually are probing until someone makes a mistake and then capitalizing on it. And I think that's a good way or a good place for the game to be in. For example, let's take a Kasai Mirror, right? It's, I think, the most complex games I've played recently because there are so many decisions. You want to deny on hits, but you want to create on hits. You only have so many copper makers in your deck, and it's this weird mini game, almost like a Kano Mirror. And yeah, I think it's just hard to, if you are a very aggressive deck, to deny them their on hits while still presenting pressure. But then if you take the foot off the gas as a dash, if you take an off turn, you'll just take 10 damage and give them 4 coppers, which you don't want to do because they'll come back, or the Kasai will eventually come back. Yeah, it's hard to say why Dash, Inventor, or Extraordinaire is not performing extremely well.
I mean, yeah, I don't think she's like bad in any sense. I think she's a perfectly good pick to play right now. I just she does have weak matchups. I also feel like Azalea is not a good matchup for you. And if we look at the most recent data from the RTNs, Azalea was the 3rd most winningest deck. So that is still like a very real deck in the format. And if you play fully defensive, then Dominate just hoses you.
Yeah, Dash seems to struggle against Azalea, against Dromai, and against Bolton. And we haven't talked about Bolton. I think Bolton is positioned well, and also from various Warrior Discords, people seem to be quite high on him, and he has been performing well this RTN season. And I expect, if I would make a prediction about the Pro Tour in 2 weeks about which decks are doing overwhelmingly better than expected, I would say it is probably Bolton and probably Iris Aura Prism.
Yeah, I think
honestly, that is true. So
Bolton has like the similar or like very similar issues to Dash. Actually, I feel like his matchup into the Rangers, his matchup into Ranger, and this matchup into Dromai, and this matchup into Kasai is just not good.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask, and depends on the game plans, right? If you play Raiden, if you play Sabres, if you play Hybrid, it all changes drastically.
I feel like it almost doesn't matter. Those matchups they can be better or worse depending on which game plan you run, but I don't think they're ever good. If that makes sense.
I need to show you some brews after this.
Okay.
I need to show you this spice. But Ralph,
let's talk a little bit about Levia,
Yeah. I just last time I played it was of course before Heavy Hitters because I was away. But I think I won 3 armories in a row without losing one game. I think the only game I lost was a fun game against you on Prism. And you should even be better now with access to some agility tokens and stuff. And especially in a meta like this, where we said, oh, it's mid-range meta, she can just out damage everything.
Yeah, we've seen Mansand take down CCRTN recently, and I watched some games, and it's the deck just does so many cool things. And I think that is one of the outliers in this February data, because the win rate for Levia there is quite low, independent on the month. And I think that is because the game is, I would guess, one of the hardest decks to play.
You're always playing a minigame with Levia, right? It's she's not much played. People don't have experience with her, but also not against her. And then, of course, as a Levia player, you have your Blood Tap minigame. You play for your own, basically. But then, like, if it gets to like the 13 life threshold to swap into Plasmorphe, I mean, like, if you get that done, if you got the feels for your pulse and everything, and if you have it in you, like, Levi is a very good pick at the moment, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And not many like opponents don't know how to play the minigame around the threshold, right?
I also feel like that's probably one of the heroes that Talishar data lies the most, because she's a deck that, like, if you are either new to Flesh and Blood or you're not a very competitive player and you pick up Levia, you just go full psycho mode every time, right? Like, you just, that's at least how I felt when I first started the game and I like played a couple of Levia games. You're just like, oh, let me banish, and then eventually you die to Blood Debt, and you're just like, oh, okay, I died, and like it wasn't my fault because I like rolled a 1 or whatever. But against like more experienced players that like know how to manage the Blood Debt mechanic, she will perform much better into her like quote unquote bad matchups on Talishar.
I agree. And I think, honestly, Ralph, you should probably pick up Levi again. I want to practice that matchup again.
Oh, we can do that.
Or you can teach me the way. I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's a very cool deck. But I think to maybe summarize this, playing your deck well is rewarded in the current meta. And I think this is a very good place to be in. Now, if you were to go to the Pro Tour, what deck would you play right now, Maurice?
I mean, right now I'm on the Kano train.
Choo-choo.
It has just been very fun to play. I have not been performing well at all because Kano, turns out, is quite hard to play, especially if you're new to the hero. But I've just been having a blast. I've been trying to like get to a list that performs well into AB3. I don't think it is the most competitive hero at the moment, but it's just been really fun to play.
Yeah,
I would bring Kano and then drop out day 1, but that's okay.
That's fair. Ralph, what about you?
Yeah, like I think I've been thinking about like the last month basically, and I can't decide between Levia and Deshai, but I think like my backup deck at the moment is would be Levia, but I'm still trying to figure out Deshai, and I want to have a good tournament with her at some point. Just like all the warriors and stuff, like Deshai can put so crazy great numbers on the board, but it's so many random stuff happens, and it's crazy. Like, you always come into new situations. So at the moment, I'm just trying to grind Deshai and get enough experience to have fun and rewarding and the tournament, hopefully with her, because I just I lost like 4 games with her in Worlds, and I can't let that sit on me. So I still want to play a big tournament with her and have a good time.
Yeah, sounds good. I don't know. I still don't know what to play at the RTN. I've been playing so many Prism games recently, but just Iris Prism, and I've been doing very well with it on Talishar. I know Talishar is not a good representation, but the deck, I like the deck, but then Dromai is an auto loss, and like, if I would just go by the numbers, I just probably grind Dromai like a madman, get good with the deck, and just play it. But then she'll LL soon, and then I can play Prism. It will be probably, I can see it already happening. It's always the exact same thing with me. I try a new deck. I brew. I'm happy with the new deck. I jam, I don't know, 50 games. I have a plan into every matchup. And then the night before the event, I prepare the deck, everything, sleeve it, new. And then I see my Kano deck. And then I'm like, wait, I'll just play Kano. And then I bring Kano again. I think every bigger tournament I've played that was not an armory was exactly like this, and it's hilarious. And I think I'll just do it again for the memes. So let's see.
My only goal is to make a field report, and it's about Dash.io and doing great.
That sounds
Dash.io
amazing.
taking down the calling in Warsaw. That would be the dream field report.
Oh yeah,
that would be the field
I'm up for
report.
that.
Yeah, perfect, cool. So. Does any of you want to add something about this? Any thoughts to share, any questions to ask. I think you had a question, Ralph, right? How to play Dash.io.
Yeah.
We cannot answer this. My
If
answer would
any
be...
of our listeners can answer how to play Dash.io, please let us know.
My answer was not, but that Ralph didn't let that count. So yes, then thank you very much for tuning in again. We will be recording more regularly again. There will be field reports, hopefully soon again. Yeah, and with that, thank you very, very much, Ralph, again, and thank you very much, Maurice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening this week. You can find us on Twitter under the handle @LDFpod. That's LDFPOD. Or you can send us an email under questions@ldfpod.com. That's QUESTIONS@LDFPOD. We're looking forward to hearing from you all and hope you tune in again in 2 weeks when it's time again for the LDF podcast.